You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 21 of the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. Now, if you're just catching up, I have been the last few weeks giving a kind of behind the scenes, real, raw, take on the Royal Arch Loop, which was a trail that I did with my friend Meg last year in the Grand Canyon. And so you can catch up on the full series. I think it starts with episode 16 when kind of Meg and I share our 1 year later reflections. And we also share some desert backpacking tips. It's a really great kind of episode. But as you know, in reflections, especially 1 year later, you can definitely have rose-colored glasses on things. So we did also think it would be really fun to kind of share our never before shared episodes that we did live on the trail that year. We kind of had the forethought, or we had the thought to record some daily episodes at the end of each day when we were actually live out there on the trail. And so I revealed those over the last couple of weeks, and that's episodes 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then today's episode is kind of like a final reflection of all of the things. So before I completely wrap up this Royal Arch Loop Trail series, I did want to record an episode about kind of one of the surprising things that I noticed about who I've become over the years. So when I finished that trail, I kind of got to look back at my 12 plus years of experience in the outdoors, the failures that I've had, the successes, the pain, the pivots, the brutal uphills, and, those crying at the tops of a summit kind of moments. I got to look at all of that. And I realized that all of those past moments that I've had, those challenges, those hardships in the adventures, right, have shaped me into a new identity. And I saw this new identity of myself very clearly on the Royal Arch Loop and finishing the Royal Arch Loop. So when I finished that trip with Meg, which was by far definitely one of the hardest, most challenging, most high consequence and technical backpacking trips that I've probably done in the past 12 years, especially when it comes to just strictly backpacking trips, I realized how much that I've grown as a person and adventurer in the face of hard days and hard challenges on the trail. And on the Royal Arch Loop, I didn't get to escape the feeling of pain or fear or challenges on the trail, which you listen to in kind of the behind the scenes episodes. There were moments that I was very scared, and there were moments that I was very challenged, and it was hard days. But I knew exactly how to move through those things. And I wasn't afraid of the overwhelm on the trail because I knew how to manage it emotionally. And I didn't let fear keep me stuck or, stuck in panic and freeze mode, right? Or make it mean that I wasn't capable. And I knew how to move through that fear. I just know that when I was newer to the outdoors, the kinds of challenges that we encountered, on the Royal Arch Loop, those kinds of things might have broken me or broken my spirit. But I did notice last year on this trip that kind of the challenge of it all, the sitting on the cactus, the brutal heat, the uphills, the rocky downhills, the exposed cliff sides, all of it, it felt very neutral in my mind. So Something that I always like talk about with clients is like a lot of times we have a lot of brain chatter that kind of compounds like our pain and our misery when we're going through something, right? So instead of, for me, and maybe in the past, like instead of my mind drama like being all over the place, I felt very at peace with all of the challenges, just being like part of this whole experience that I had signed up for. I was not only expecting it to be hard, like the Royal Arch Loop, but I didn't argue with that reality when it was hard. It's like a lot of times we sign up for a trip and we're like, it's going to be challenging. And then when it is challenging, we're like really upset about it. But I felt kind of like I settled into it. I was like, oh, here's the hard part, right? I felt alive to the full experience of the Royal Arch Loop and all that it had to offer me. Of course, the high highs, like the giggles, the beautiful landscape, but also like the low lows, the exhaustion, the heat, the crying from overwhelm, right? Like there was a moment in one of the episodes where I talked about where I had a moment and I had to tell Meg, I was like, I am feeling overwhelmed. But I really just feel so proud and kind of look back at that experience of like being not willing to feel it all, like being willing to feel that really wide spectrum of emotions and like keep moving through it. So past Allison, if I think about like a past version of myself, she might have compounded her misery. Sorry if you're hearing background noise. This is my puppy and he wants to play right now. So he's playing with a toy that making loud noises, but we're just going to keep going. Past Allison might have compounded her misery by arguing with reality and fighting against like this whole experience being so hard. Like, why is this so hard? Like, I'm not cut out for this. This is miserable. Like, I don't want to be here. I would even be thinking like, I don't belong here. Like, why did I sign up for this? That is kind of when you're in it and you're in the hard thing and then you're kind of like arguing with that reality, when I talked about like expecting it to be hard and not arguing with the reality that it's hard, sometimes people, when they get to the hard moment, they forget that they expected it to be hard. But on the Royal Arch Loop, I kind of saw this like new version of myself, like really fully emerge. I saw myself become the person who really like truly understood how to find the joy and the challenge of it all, who like smiled at the end of the day and was like, what's next? Like, what does the Grand Canyon have next for us? And one like funny thing, like Meg and I throughout the trip, we had all these little sayings about the Grand Canyon, like all hail the GC, the almighty GC. But one of them that we kept saying was like the Grand Canyon giveth and the Grand Canyon taketh, because we would have like this cloud cover and it would cover our exposed trail for a while and we'd be like, oh, the Grand Canyon giveth. But then, then it would remove itself and then it would be brutally hot. And we're like, well, the Grand Canyon taketh. And, we just kind of respected it all. And we were there, like we were on that trail. We were there to experience all of it. We weren't trying to run from the hard thing or pretend it should be easier. We knew that part of the adventure of like signing up for the Royal Arch Loop was the challenge of it all and the unknown of it all. And, in my past, like I've frequently experienced the high that comes from like overcoming the hard thing and triumphing regardless of it, and the achievement of like being at the end of it, right? And I'm sure you've experienced that before. Like you do a hard thing and you're like really proud of yourself, but like kind of after the fact, right? But last year, I really experienced the version of me in a deeper way. I mean, I've definitely experienced this plenty of times before, but like in a deeper way because of how hard this was. I experienced the version of me that found kind of like peace and neutrality and presence and even joy in the midst of the hard thing and not just at the end. And, it is something that like I always joke with my clients about, especially like if they're, doing a hard thing, which I love taking people on experiences that kind of push them out of their comfort zone and like really help them raise the bar and what they thought they were capable of. But like in those moments when they are in the middle of the hard and I'm kind of walking them through that, like I always tell them, never judge a trip until like 1 week after the experience. Because when you're like in the middle of a hard thing, you do often have a lot of mind drama until you kind of learn how to navigate that more. So when you're just starting out, don't be surprised if you have a lot of mind drama about an experience, about a hard challenge on the trail, and just wait and see it through. Like most of my clients come back to me and are like, yes, you were so right. Like, when can I go again? That was amazing. I'm so proud of myself, all of those things. But my ultimate goal with all of my clients is really to get them to a place where they actually find a bit of like neutrality or even joy. Like joy is hard to get to sometimes when you're going through it and you're really in the pain of it. So that's kind of very aspirational, maybe a future focus, but like even neutrality, just feeling like this is happening sort of feeling when things get hard and when things don't go according to plan and when you have to pivot, right? I want my clients to be able to kind of drop into the moment almost as if they're watching a movie of themselves, like thinking, oh, okay, this is the part where I encounter a challenge, but I know that the next part is so good, so I'm going to keep watching because like I won't believe what I did to overcome it. And they're kind of like in that experience of the adventure of it with themselves. And I experienced this a lot on the trail, especially over the last like 7 years or so, where this has just become, a more normal part of my overall experience and identity. But it was still such a surreal experience for me on the Grand Canyon because of how tough it was to really see like how truly I've stepped into that version of myself now. And I've not stopped thinking about it since that trip because for me, it was like really profound in a lot of different ways. But like one of the ways is, my brain is already thinking like, how can I teach this to my clients more? This is why I encourage my clients and all of you to like not be afraid of the hard things that the trail has to offer you. I want you to learn how to like go through those hard moments. I want you to learn how to navigate the emotional highs and the lows, right? This is when your adventure becomes like a true adventure that you can really be excited and like be all in on and be really alive and awake to, right? You stop thinking like when you're learning to go through, you stop thinking that something has gone wrong. And instead you start thinking, okay, like for example, I'm feeling overwhelmed and it's okay. This is part of my experience as a backpacker. I've got this and this will shape me, right? When you learn to go through the hard thing, like you transform into a new self identity. And for me, when I got back to the car, even though it was one of the most physically and mentally challenging adventures I had been on in a long time, it was also one of the most amazing experiences I had been on in a long time. And at the end of our last trail series podcast, you probably heard Meg and I both say, like, we would both do it again, even though how hard it was and scary and challenging, all the things. And it just reminded me of how much like I've grown over the years, which was a full circle moment for me. And it like reminded me how good it feels to really be awake and alive to your life, all of the parts of life, like the hard parts and the good parts. It reminded me of how powerful and capable that I am. The last 12 years of basically like kind of being in the midst of it, like going through the hard challenges and adventures, all of that has helped me up level my self-concept as a woman who goes into the backcountry. Like I've developed this identity that now says like I'm capable of these things. I can hold space for really big and tough emotions out on the trail. Like I can navigate challenging situations. And I have developed an identity of somebody who isn't like taken out emotionally by a hard uphill or a fearful situation or a really challenging day. And that's kind of what I want for everyone. I want to teach that better. I want to help my clients experience this for themselves. And for me, like one of the most interesting things about my time on the Royal Arch Loop was how neutral like some of our hard days felt in my brain, like super hot days, big uphills, grueling, never ending, rocky downhills, high exposure. In my brain, the conversation was never like, I can't do this and panicking and freaking myself out. But it was more like, okay, this is a scary thing that I'm going through, or this is a hard thing, or this particular part is very challenging, but I know how to do this. I know I can do this. I'm going to do this. And it was kind of like this, let's fucking go energy. Like, let's do it. I'm ready. Like, bring it on sort of stuff. And because of that identity, I had that time of my life out there on the Royal Arch Loop. Like I giggled so hard. I had an amazing time. I saw places on this earth like millions of people will never get to experience. I got to go to a really remote part of the Grand Canyon. I watched the sunset over the canyon walls. I got to walk the desert with my friend, go on a really challenging adventure with her. I heard canyon tree frogs orchestrate the canyon walls, which you can listen to in episode 17. I got to, rest for 5 hours under a rock, which sounds lame when I say it right now, but it was like the most luxurious home for me. And I felt really present and connected. And we had a really a good moment from that. And I felt, connected to myself more than I had in a while. And I kind of knew at the end of that experience, I really felt that transformation. I wasn't the same girl I was when I first started in my outdoorsy journey as an adventurer. I haven't been that same girl in a long time, but it was really evident. And it was really amazing to kind of see that transformation and that growth. But there is no shortcut for it, my friends. You do have to do the hard things. So next time that you're signing yourself up for a challenging adventure or you find yourself in the midst of a challenge, I want you to think to yourself that this challenge that you're going through, this hard thing that you're going through, is an initiation into your next identity, into that new self-concept, the way that you show up, right? See that experience as happening for you, not to you or not against you. That going through that hard part is actually part of your evolution. And you will be so proud of how you navigated through it. You will be so proud at how you stayed present and awake to all of it, all of the emotions, all of the hard things. And so this was just, I wanted to do a little wrap-up episode of something that was on my heart to kind of share where you could get to with all of this stuff. And when you kind of experience this growth of finding neutrality, finding joy in the hard thing, you really get to experience more of your adventures. Sometimes we're trying to push so hard and so fast through the hard thing so that we can just get it done with. But you really get to drop into the full experience when you're not afraid to go through that hard part, and really just be present to all of it. And it's really amazing. It's just a very surreal experience. It's really hard to explain sometimes, but I just want you to trust me. That is a really amazing place to get to. And something that I think about a lot of times is if we can find neutrality or even joy in the hard things on the trail, where else can we apply that in life? Because so much of life is, something I'm going to talk about in a future episode is the 50-50 experience. I've talked about it a little bit before, but I want to kind of dive deeper into it. If we can learn how to do that on the trail, imagine how unstoppable you will be having those skills and that tool of doing the same thing in your life. Because when you are trying to grow or you're trying to do something you've never done before in your life, if you have the emotional capacity to be this is a hard part and I'm here for it, you will be unstoppable. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to get off my little soapbox here, but that was just really on my heart. I hope that it was, inspirational, what you needed to hear. And, if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking to yourself, yes, Allison, I really want to sign up for the hard thing. I want to do more hard things. I want to put myself in the way of challenges. I want to grow. I want to learn how to become the kind of person who knows how to step into her own personal power when a challenge presents itself, who has strong self-belief and self-trust, who knows how to hold space for big emotions and knows how to navigate those big emotions, no matter how hard the experience is, who can feel neutrality and even joy in the hard thing. This is the kind of work that we will be doing all summer with our clients in our program, the Adventurous Reinvention Experience. So now this podcast is called the Adventurous Reinvention Podcast, but one of our core programs that we put on once a year at She Dreams of Alpine is the Adventurous Reinvention Experience. And the reason I'm mentioning that now is enrollment for that program is happening soon. So doors for our summer program will be opening early April. So that is only a few weeks away now. And the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, for those of you who don't know or haven't heard of it before, what it is it's kind of like a 4-month sort of transformational coaching journey and a in-person backpacking adventure for women who want more, like who want more adventure in their life. They want more confidence, more freedom, more aliveness all around in their lives and how they show up, right? So we blend personal growth and adventure into kind of like one powerful experience inside of this program. You'll go through weekly coaching with me. You'll spend the summer sort of creating a life that makes you feel as alive as you do on the trail. We'll like dig into that, explore what that means to you. And at the end of our time together, we're going to bring all of these pieces to life with an epic like in-person backpacking adventure together. So this is kind of like, I love to kind of do a lot of parallels with what we learn on the trail to what we experience in life. And that's kind of what that coaching experience is about, but then also kind of relating it back to the trail, having our in-person retreat together. We're training together all summer. It's just a very kind of like back and forth personal growth, adventure kind of experience together. And it'll be just a small group of us on our own kind of epic adventure together. We will be like challenged and delighted and experiencing all of those kind of wide range of emotional experiences together. It's a really powerful program. This will be our 3rd year running it. We always fill up our program because we only have limited spots. So it's about 24 spots. So the best way, if you are interested in that or you want to learn more, like the best way to stay in the loop for that program is to join our Adventurous Reinvention waitlist. And you can do that by going to shedreamsofalpine.com/ARE, which I will also link in the show notes in case you want a quick link for that. And our enrollment for that will open in April. We do always open it to existing clients first. So 1 week ahead of everyone else, they will get open enrollment. And then we will open to our waitlist next. So it is really advantageous to be on the wait list so that way you get kind of first dibs at the open spots. And we will begin our coaching container in May, and then our in-person backpacking trips, depending on the trip that you take, it will be around late July or early August timeframe. So if you're interested in that, like going through that experience or learning more, definitely sign up for the wait list at shedreamsofalpine.com/ARE. All right, that is all that I have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your patience with the little background noise with the new puppy. He is just testing his boundaries and all the things and exploring his world. I will see you next week, and thanks so much for being here. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.